If you're not in Bitcoin, you're at the bottom of the line. If you were in Bitcoin, you rise to the top of it. It's your choice. Because the rest of the world will be in Bitcoin, whereas you will be in your country's assets. And randomly, one day of the year, at some point in the future, just like what happened to Lebanon, everyone's going to devalue your assets by 10x. 90% of the value gone overnight. So it doesn't matter what you're in. It won't matter how good a stock pick you make. It's gone. 90% gone overnight.
It's funny you say that as well. I had I don't know if it's a dream or a nightmare, where I just woke up.
Was it a wet dream?
It was like a tsunami. Going to continue along that line. And it just happened. It happened, like, as in Bitcoin hyper Bitcoinization happened overnight.
Were we in Apache helicopter above the company office, drinking JD?
I'm sailing down with a bottle of whiskey, ready to launch through the window.
Pride flags.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm burning. Yes, it's back once again. The world's most bullish podcast, brought to you in part by the one and only Mr. All-In, aka the $1 trillion man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and surprise, surprise, Pod 88, Mrs. No Show has not shown. Two fat ladies, 88.
Did you just misgender the number 88?
I probably did. Yeah.
Did you just misgender Miss No Show?
We're coming off the back of our most popular show from last week. Dr. Evil takes a leave of absence, and most popular show. Well, I say most popular. It's in the top 5. It's 5th, but the top 4 are FTX bollocks, which we know kind of.
Yeah.
We kind of know
it was interesting.
We rode a wave there, didn't we?
Yeah, we hit the FTX wave. So, and we've kind of vowed to not really speak about that anymore. So, non-FTX episodes last week was number 1.
Oh, fantastic. Is that both on pod streams and YouTube as well?
Yeah, in total, yeah. It's weird. Like YouTube has completely different. Like what goes popular on YouTube is completely different to what goes popular on podcasts. The top episodes don't match up at all. It's completely different. I think it's because of the thumbnails and stuff like that plays a big part in YouTube land. So when I randomly fall across a good thumbnail, it does well. Whereas obviously in podcast land, there's no thumbnails there. It's the same one every week.
I wonder why. Because it wasn't the best thumbnail. It was just $59 to be in the Bitcoin 1%. Whereas
maybe in your absence.
Yeah. Maybe your grip on being the people's champ isn't so firm.
It is.
Maybe it's just the person's champ. But no, to us, you did give some feedback to Neverlook where you realised I kind of dropped off the intros. So last week I was like, I'll listen to your feedback. I'll shove it back on because weirdly it was on the end anyway, but I shoved it on the beginning, and so I did that as well. And then that.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe people liked the intro and it just hooked people a little bit more.
Yeah, I'd say it's like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. If you don't have that little jingle at the beginning, it's just not the same.
Yeah.
I was just having a look through the thumbnails on YouTube. I do like the Inflation Dragon one.
Yeah.
And I quite like which one's a good one? Because it just makes me laugh. We would, Kathy would.
Oh, that's a favourite. Yeah, that's a favourite.
One of my favourite pastimes, just looking through the thumbnails. It's like, oh wow, get all this. They make nice. One day we've got to print them all out or something. Just make a bit of nice artwork, I reckon.
Yeah,
the older ones don't have the thumbnails though, do they? So
No, I left them like that. Left them original because you can literally just see the progression. It just started off with our faces. Then I think I started doing a little bit of artwork. Then I just dropped off faces completely and just started doing thumbnails.
Also, Daddy, that one made me laugh. Like from what do we call him? The Everyday Man.
Yeah.
When he messaged me, he's like, I can't share this with my dad. I'm like, you can.
I literally titled it for him.
You know, every good film has a sequel, so there will be Daddy Part 2.
Daddy Part 2. Yeah,
Daddy comes again.
Daddy comes again. So, to the Everyday Man, get your questions off your dad, because I know you haven't managed to orange pill him again, but he is stuck in his fiat world, so I think it is a tough task.
And we'll have an episode called Daddy Comes Again. Good luck sending that to
him. Can't wait. I'm ready for that.
So why are all your Bitcoin podcasts got the word daddy in?
So some feedback from last week. You discussed that someone had given you feedback about that we're all in agreement. So we've all basically become brainwashed with the same nonsense which you've been feeding us. Yeah. To the person who gave you that feedback, go fuck yourself.
Yeah. While you were sucking on plums, we kept the ship going.
Well, and, it was actually tramps and it was for sats.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah, we guessed it, didn't we? That's what we
guessed. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about that, though? Do you feel that like we agree a lot now? Because you weren't.
I think so. I think there's stuff. I think you read into conspiracies a lot more, but I suppose my kind of like my outlook on that is I kind of don't blame you, because I was messaging the group today because whilst I was doing some chores at lunchtime, I was listening to Confessions of the Economic Hitman, and it talked around the Ecuador president in 1981 and also the Panama president. So basically, the Panama president got the Panama Canal back, and the Ecuador president, I think he basically just told the US to go and fuck themselves because he didn't want to be corrupt. He didn't want them mining their oil, and he wanted their people to do well. Both died in plane crashes within 2 months of each other. And that's why I just look at conspiracy theories and go, it could be right. I may not agree that it's right now, but it could be.
Yeah. I mean, all the differences. I mean, all I've probably done for you guys really is it's the whole don't trust, verify thing. So all the difference is really, I don't think you've really like started repeating what I say. It's just you've started verifying things. You started reading different books. You started listening to different audiobooks and stuff. And then you're checking whether these audiobooks are telling the truth. And you're realizing, oh yeah, anyone that disagrees with the US, weirdly ends up dead if you're in a position of power. And there's a lot of these coincidences over the years. And you go, oh, and if I had just come on the pod going, oh, do you know the Ecuadorian president was assassinated by America via a plane crash because he refused the petrodollar or something. When we first started this, you just put a tinfoil hat on. And in reality, it's just a case of you haven't looked into this. Like, it sounds crazy. It sounds crazy to say that America are assassinating political opponents who don't agree with them. That's supposed to be the only person that's supposed to do that is China and Russia. They're the only ones that kill political opponents. Whereas when you start looking into it,
Hollywood directors.
Yeah.
Because it's so far-fetched, isn't it? And I think that's the case. We always think that would never happen, and I think we always err.
It happened in the past. It's not going to happen now.
Or it didn't.
America's different. America's changed.
Yeah, of course. I think it is difficult for the average person, including ourselves, to obviously get our heads around the fact that they might not be telling us the truth. They might be corrupt. They might be the ones that we should be afraid of.
Well, they're not going to spend that money on bee-friendly highways and also protecting salmon, and also gender studies in Pakistan.
Exactly.
It's just the more you look into it, isn't it? You've got to go, I have to believe in such amount of coincidence and or incompetence to explain it, because that's
Yeah.
the only way of explaining some of this stuff is it's just, oh, these guys disagreed, ended up dead. Okay, this policy was done, cost loads of money. The money didn't go in the right place. It just went straight into these people's hands. That's incompetence. There's only so many times you can put these things into those buckets, I think, until you go, I think I'm being a little bit naive to putting all these things into those two buckets. I think some of this is conspiracy. And then once you start realizing, once you put the odd thing into the conspiracy bucket and you go, that isn't what they say, that isn't a coincidence and it isn't incompetence, I think that is conspiracy. You drop it in. And once you start doing that, there's hardly anything left that's sat in incompetence and in, what was the other one?
Coincidence.
And coincidence. And it's just
Well,
all the big stuff is sat in the conspiracy bucket now. And you're like, fuck, I've been lied to a lot here.
Yeah.
On the Easter egg episode when Miss No Show actually turned up, I think we did discuss this, because I think I raised the point that she hasn't been here and hasn't really been, in the same kind of journey, hasn't been digging as hard. And I think there's a difference of opinion, wasn't there then? And it kind of showed like the evolution. Because myself and Sir Neville read a lot of books, and it's not just some wacko books. These are mainstream finance books, they're economics books, and also listen to a lot of books.
Yeah.
Dig into things, and I
we're
think
constantly back and forth, like, what about this? And what about this? And
it's the kind of things which you just pick up in these about how much nonsense there is. And you're kind of like putting all these things together and you're kind of going, this isn't right. This isn't right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty much what I said. It's like, I don't think we're aligning between like almost like a cult or around one set of opinions. It's just now we're just basing more and more of our views on facts and data now. And just kind of almost hiding from it. I think to begin with, you're almost hiding, and there's almost like it's the meme, right? It was ignorance was bliss. That's kind of where you two were on a lot of these issues. And I'm there going, this is a corrupt as fuck. Look. And I'm kind of pointing you at it. And you're like, no, I don't want to look. I want to stay in my pod where this steak tastes delicious. I know it's fake.
I want to go back.
I want to go back. It was so much easier going back as well. And I also find it impossible not to share it outside of our group as well. So then I look like the crazy one in every other group. Because the minute you say, the US leak in China with the whole COVID stuff and US funded...
it's a conspiracy theory though, isn't it?
Yeah, well, exactly. But it was...
Oh, they funded it. It was only partially funded. Oh, no. Actually, first of all, it wasn't a leak. It happened in a cave. Oh, it may have happened in a cave. It may have happened in a lab. We're fairly certain it's a lab. Yeah, it was a lab. It was funded. It was funded a bit by us. We funded it all. We released it on purpose.
Yeah.
What were you experimenting on? COVID variants. Bruh. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, it was why? So we could make vaccines, but you made a whole new COVID variant. Yes.
And then you had a vaccine very quickly afterwards. Sus. Little bit sus. You create a problem.
The quickest vaccine ever known to man.
Almost like they had it already.
See, that part I don't agree with because it doesn't work.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah,
Well,
I don't want to go into
it. Doesn't need for it to work, does it?
No, they still made.
It's the story and the belief, isn't of it working. And I mean, we may have just come off the back of our highest views, but we're about to get ourselves cancelled.
What are we going to? Are we going to start talking about our ESG policies?
Yeah. Well, that's the only way to redeem ourselves.
I was going to say we need to get Miss No Show on, since Miss No Show is our quality hire.
Yeah, I drown a puppy every time I stack stats, so that's fine.
And Miss No Show is also the ESG program manager.
Nice, yeah. That's what will go in the show notes from now on.
Yeah, let's get on to Bitcoin.
Let's do this. So, do you want to give us a rundown of the stories?
Yeah, go on then. I will do it. So, we got a load of Bitcoin stuff today. We've got a load of Bitcoin projects getting funded. That's our top story. And we got some information for Saifedean about bonds. Spoiler alert, he doesn't like them. We've got some inflation weekly. We've got Lebanon and their hyperinflation v Bitcoin. We've got some news on El Salvador, and not directly Bitcoin related, but in relation to their mega prisons and the media's reaction to that. We've got a nice fiat maxi saying that Bitcoin's dead. Yeah, that's nice. We've got a fiat guy who is also against CBDCs. So we'll go into his view. We've got some news about Blue Wallet. If you've got Lightning, Lightning Wallet on Blue Wallet, you'll want to listen to that bit because you need to get your sats off that wallet. They are discontinuing it. And then the last story is that Bitcoin privacy keeps getting even easier. BTC Pay Server is integrating CoinJoin and Wasabi, which is pretty cool. But yeah, a full week yet again.
Yep, Bitcoin keeps on moving despite the fact that it's dead. So 2 billion sats to Bitcoin projects. Let's kick off there. So the HRF donates 2 billion Satoshis to 10 global Bitcoin projects. So the HRF is the Human Rights Foundation. And essentially the funding is global with a focus on Africa and Southeast Asia. And the grant includes, so we're told, $100,000 to Koala. I'd never heard of Koala before.
No, I hadn't heard of any of the companies. I think they've split it around. Yeah, they split it 10 ways, haven't they? So it's about $500 million. Anyone wondering, trying to do the maths in the head, how much is 2 billion Satoshis? It's about $500,000. So they've given roughly 50,000 to each of these. But yeah, there's the odd 100,000 one in here as well. But it looks good, yeah. So these are the kind of places that we should be supporting it. These are the places that need Bitcoin. We've talked about Africa numerous times. There's loads of people using Bitcoin in Africa, but I'm sure that the entrepreneurs and the people trying to build businesses there, that they probably do struggle. So this type of money, throwing 50, 175K into a business, that's massive for them. They can start hiring, they can redo their app nicely, get some decent software and get some servers sitting behind it to handle the traffic. And who knows? This could be a great little kind of seed investment into Africa, and let's see what comes out of it. There's these 10 companies. Let's see if one of these ends up being, the Coinbase of Africa. It could be pretty awesome if they've managed to do that.
Yeah.
Shouldn't they spent it on making it proof of stake?
I'll just shove it up their ass.
Koala's really interesting, actually. As earlier on, I was looking on their website, and I'll just recite it quickly now. So it's Bitcoin for Africa by Africans. So essentially, what they're trying to do is use that donated money to help people that want to become developers or already software developers with 1 to 5 years experience, and essentially continue to make the space even greater for those willing to learn and grow in the Bitcoin space. So it's a really interesting project.
So this is pushed by Alex Gladstein. I swear we've talked about him before. He's a big Bitcoiner, isn't he? So, he talks about Bitcoin is a powerful tool for human rights defenders around the world, and this grants support their belief that financial freedom is a human right. So I think it kind of touched upon what we talked about in Nigeria and various other countries, is that the oppressive governments, which are, taking a piss, making people poor, making people starving. This is the life raft. But, I suppose one thing which I'll say to everyone is, when you get my life raft, you haven't got to sit next to Mr. All-In. Even if there is that spare space next to him.
Yeah. I've brought the 4 seats around me anyway. I don't like being too close to the. But yeah, I've just seen on here there's 50k that's gone to Nostr. So it's the censorship-resistant, open-source, decentralized social network platform. I've seen this mentioned loads on Twitter. There's loads of people almost screenshotting Nostr and posting it. I keep meaning to check it out. I didn't realize it was part of this. So yeah, Nostr.
There's something else which is always being mentioned at the moment on Bitcoin Twitter, but the other one's negative. I can never remember what it is. So
yeah.
So Xeon never got going though for the kind of like social media, the censorship.
It didn't. I think they wanted like quite a lot of money, didn't they?
I think it's like $15 a month or something like that.
Oh, was it? Is that it? Yeah, I keep getting emails from them, so they are doing it. But yeah, I don't really think I'd have to look into Nostr because it's all about how you decentralize it, right? So Zion said everyone's gonna have their own Lightning node, and you're gonna have to pay $15 a month to maintain that and stuff. It just seems a little bit clunky that it's
yeah.
Because there is a genuine huge overhead behind the scenes there. If you're going to do a Lightning node per person, you're going to scale your platform to be a genuine social network. That's 100 million people, right? That's just, if you haven't got 100 million on it, you don't have a social network. It's just a network of a small cult. So 100 million Lightning nodes, who the fuck is maintaining them?
Yeah,
it's going to be a huge amount of money, $15 a month for all that, but Jesus Christ, like that, it's just a little bit silly, I think, and I don't think it scales. Whereas I'd have to look into Nostr to go, how have they decentralized it? But the fact that there's a lot of Bitcoiners talking about it gives me hope that it isn't some bollocks that we've seen before. Like, there's so many shitcoins that have promised a decentralized social network, and it ends up just being because occasionally we write back to the ETH proof of stake network, and you go, right, it's just bollocks. Like it's not decentralized at all.
What's the one which Donald Trump is on?
Oh, the Truth Network.
That's his own, isn't it?
Yeah. Talking of networks, so what I'm listening to now is a book called it's Warren Buffett, and it's all about inside the ultimate money mind. And during the book, it talks about networks and the network effect. And essentially, one of the chapters, I thought it was, had been transformed into listening to them describing Bitcoin, essentially, because they talk about technology and technology adoption and the technology adoption curve. And through it, I was just like, you guys are describing Bitcoin. Anyway, where I got to with it is essentially we are maybe 4 to 5 years away where Bitcoin just continues to scale, and to the point where I think companies like the Apples of this world and Microsofts will invest their hard-earned dollars that are on the side into this space, because they'll see it and they'll be like, it makes sense. So all of these startups that are trying to get money and trying to be funded, I think won't necessarily survive, and some will thrive, but they won't survive. They'll just get bought out, and we'll see the big boys probably go and do it themselves.
Yeah, that's the thing with Warren Buffett. Like he does know his tech cycles, even though he missed the entire tech phase, which I'm pretty sure whatever book you're reading there or listening to, he's written this after the entire tech phase happened.
This is by another guy, not by Warren Buffett. It's more inside of his mind of how he's caught on to other cycles. But you're right, the cycle's late. So you're absolutely right.
He missed it all.
Correct.
He got the banks and the oil companies back in the 50s to the 2000s.
I was going to say he got Apple. Apple's the one tech
eventually
company.
He got Apple about 3 years ago.
Oh, was it? No, he's had it for a fair amount of years, and he's used Apple's driven most of the growth of his fund.
Yeah, exactly. But he invested in Apple. Jesus Christ, like the iPhone 7 was out or something. Like all the gain, like of course, like his billion, he put like a billion in, and he probably grew it to two. So that's the majority of his growth. But yeah, he missed Apple, he missed Amazon, he missed Google, he missed
Microsoft.
the entire internet. He missed everything. He thought it was a big hype cycle. And then for some reason,
he is like 90 though.
I know, but the stupid thing is people still value his opinion when he talks about Bitcoin. And you go, he missed the entire internet. This guy's opinion is so invalid. Once we came out of bricks and mortar, that was where this guy was good. Now, once we went digital,
2016, I thought he'd had Apple more like 2010.
Yeah, and if you look at Apple 2016, Jesus, like to invest in Apple, if you were trying to be early, it's 2000. He was 16 years late. That is not getting Apple. That's buying Apple.
Don't forget as well, Warren Buffett is somebody that can have direct access. So he could have easily met with Steve Jobs before Steve Jobs' passing. He had and still does have direct access to Bill Gates and could have invested at any time. And they were good friends as well.
Friends with Bill Gates.
Yeah, I don't think he went on any planes, unfortunately. I think Warren's a bit old for Bill. By about 90 years. That's young. But should we move on to Saifedean?
Let's do it.
So it's a typical Saifedean tweet. He's just dunking on the good old bond market. So the Treasury bonds, which are supposed to be the safe haven, they will guaranteed to go up by 2-3% a year, keep up with inflation. But 10 years ago, if you'd have put 10K into this Treasury bond, you'd have 10,877. And as we know, right? So during about 10-15 years, the spending power of your money halves. So that 10K now has a spending power of about 5K. And that is being nice, right? That's
especially after the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's me not adjusting for that. So I literally got a bill today. Now I shared it in the group yesterday. I think my phone bill is going up by 13.4%.
Yeah, that's it.
So straight away, just if that happens, that kind of blows this type of thing out the water if that's what you're trying to invest in. So it pretty much, it's just the best safe haven, the thing that is plugged in to the government. So the government do inflation by one number. They're supposed to put their Treasury bond up by the same number. So it's 100% guaranteed. The way the market perceives it is if you put your money in this, safe as houses, provided the government doesn't fail, you'll keep up with inflation. It's a nice little money earner. And this just proves that you've pretty much lost half of the spending power of your money if you'd have done this.
Safe, just doing what safe does, right?
But shouldn't you support your government? Don't you want to be a good boy?
I know you want to be a patriot.
It's one of those things. Like you think about bonds, you think about the essence. So, what do? We pay taxes. And then also, they want you as part of your pension, as part of all your investments, to buy a fund which includes loads of bonds in it. And these bonds don't even track inflation, as we've just seen in that example. Typically, they're about 1%, maybe 0.5% is the return yield.
Yeah.
And you're looking on a typical year of 3 to 5% inflation. So you're down 2.5 to 4.5% on that investment per year for the luxury of lending to your government. And they tell you that it's a low risk. But if you put it in something like the S&P, which is heavily funded by the government, then surely that's low risk as well. And you're actually going to roughly track with inflation as well. It's just like the most nonsensical. But then, not only are they happy with taxing you heavily. So, I think we talked about this before. If you're earning roughly 100 grand, you're probably paying 60% direct tax. So that includes fuel, it includes food, it includes your income tax, your council tax, and everything else. And then on top of that, you've also got your secondary tax, everything which you buy, the people who you're buying off and also the companies are being taxed. So you're paying a phenomenal amount of tax on everything which you buy, and no one realizes like the scam. It's literally 70-80%, and probably 20% of what you're buying is actual product. And then also you've got inflation every year. So you're getting another 5% taken off you, or if they put on something like a war or COVID, it's 20%, 30%. But somehow we think that bonds are a good investment. And we've seen, I think it was a few months ago, the Italian bonds fell on their arse, so did the UK. And do you know how they saved them?
By propping up the bond market, by printing more money and buying them themselves. And
exactly.
It's weird, isn't it, that all of this, again, we live in this digital rich age where all of the information is out there, but yet the narrative is bonds are the safe haven, buy bonds. Even though the interest and it hasn't increased in terms of, it's 1 to 2%. Why?
Well, this is what I keep on hammering my wife with, because she's got some funds. I said, well,
whoa, is it that sort of show? Whoa. Is she bondage hammering your wife? Okay, that's what came through my headphones.
I know you're getting a bit excited. But she's got funds which consist of bonds, whereas I'll invest in an index. And so it's like you're getting a diluted version of that. And that's what I'd say to anyone who's listening to this is the bond is taking your, say, 10% of your S&P, and you're having to overload it with a bond to make sure it's stable. And it takes you down to 3% returns. Yeah. Whereas inflation is 3 to 5, you're potentially losing because of those bonds being in your fund. Whereas if you go for the index, I've just dropped 20, 30% this recession year. Over 10 years, historically, over the last 100 years, it's averaging about 10% climb per year. But then also invest in Bitcoin. Don't just buy stocks. Because they are nonsense as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, just buying stocks is very, very risky, obviously.
Well, I'm saying funds even.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, the point most people listening, probably without them even realizing it, probably do own bonds. If I wonder why do I care about bonds, it's like, you probably do have some, and they're probably hidden in your pension somewhere.
I was going to say, yeah.
And it's taking your potential returns from 10% down to 2 or 3.
Yeah. So it's one of them where you go, but I saved tax money going in. Like, well, over the last 10 years, the money's halved. So are you going to get taxed 50% on all that? Because it's already halved. Are you retired yet? Because it's going down further yet.
And the money is being deflated away. So by the time you are ready to retire, what's going to be there?
Yeah, and like you just said, it's not going to be the total, but what it does, it seriously impacts your profits.
Yeah.
If you just put it into a market that tracks the S&P, at least you get that rate of return. The second you go, oh no, I'm going to take 10, 20% of it just in case the S&P goes down and shove it into bonds. When the S&P doesn't go down, it keeps tracking up. You're not keeping up with inflation now. You're not keeping up with the S&P. And this is why, like, we literally, I think it was last week, we had a story saying diversification sucks. I think it's Saylor saying it. Diversification is very, very dangerous. If you have a winner, why would you dilute the winner with a load of losers just in case you were wrong about the winner? All it really means is when you were actually right and the winner comes in, you don't win that much. It's silly. It's diversification. It just keeps you poor. But
so I think he put his moral of the story from Saifedean: do drugs before you ever touch treasuries, kids.
I would 100% advocate for
that. Right, let's move on from Safe. Oh, yeah, the jingle. What did you think to the jingle? Obviously, you were noshing off tramps at the time, but
for sats.
Yeah.
Well, you'd have to find some jingle.
You meant to do it.
Am I? Oh,
yeah.
Never mind.
Do you not see you watched it? It's on.
I listened to it. You just nattered on for a bit about it. I thought you were going to actually make a jingle for it.
No, the jingle was the Ricky Gervais thing that I literally played.
Yeah. We'll edit it in, get it in.
So I just play mine. I'll play mine from last week.
Yeah.
Oh, Janet Yellen that. Oh, Debation Weekly.
So moving on, this is a story about Lebanon and its hyperinflation. So this is the result of them repegging the currency. So I think reading through a thread on Reddit, I think a lot of people don't understand this. So what's happened over, I think, the past 20, 30 years is Lebanon have been doing what all good countries do, which is lots of QE. And for a place which was described as the Paris of the Middle East and was, renowned as a developed country, it's up shit creek now. So they've repegged it. And I think having a read through this, it's managed to boom the price of Bitcoin, and it emphasizes why people were using stable coins in Bitcoin and that they're not suffering. They're not being taken for a ride on the Lebanese pound. But if this was actually, I suppose, a real currency, something which could be tracked and traced, you'd probably see a bit of a, I would say smooth, but it's going to be an upward trend continuously as they're printing more and more. So whereas this kind of stays a little bit flat as they're pretending that they haven't done it, then goes up through the roof because no one's accepting the pound, it'd be a bit more on a diagonal if it's actually real. Whereas this just looks like there's one event, and obviously the government had no interaction which caused this. It was greedy capitalists, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts, right? So what was it? There was. Yeah. I'm just getting up the chart myself because obviously we've linked to a Reddit post here, which is just a screenshot of the post, and I think the problem is, right, is it says 74,000% appreciation of Bitcoin, but that's all time. So I just to bring it back a little bit close, because just about every currency has done that on Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has started from zero, and then so it's an unfair comparison when you go all time. But if you just go the last 5 years, it's up 2,500%. So you would have got, what's this down here? Basically about 11 million Lebanese something, don't know what they are, per Bitcoin. So 11 million of them. As of today, you would have to pay 352 million for Bitcoin on the Lebanese currency. So for the last 5 years, it's gone from 13 million to pretty much 400 million. And over the last year, 65, beginning of the year, 65 million per Bitcoin, now 400 per million. So it's just, it's completely nuts. The inflation over the last, just the 1 year is 439%. So this is obviously, in reality, like Bitcoin has gone up a little bit more in Lebanon than it has in other places. But in reality, Bitcoin has stayed relatively stable. The movable object here is the Lebanese dollar or whatever it is.
Pound.
Pound to Lebanon pound. I know it's very strange because it's got a dollar symbol, but it's called the Lebanon pound.
Yeah, the comments were just confused me as I was reading them. I was like, why has it got a dollar symbol?
Yeah. What's interesting on the Reddit post, what I found was, it's ironic that the price of a movie ticket in every country. Did you see that post?
No.
So next to it, it's got a picture of a thread of the entire map of the world. I'll put it in our chat and we can obviously upload it again into the show notes. But the cheapest place on earth to watch a movie is our friends El Salvador for 52 cents. Whereas in Lebanon, it's the equivalent of nearly $30 to watch a film at $29.78. And so the inflation of the country clearly just shows for everybody to see, and it's pretty mad.
There's a claim in here as well, saying this literally happened to the 10 plus countries the US invaded and destroyed under Bush, but mainly Obama. Bold claim, but kind of like think about it. You had Iraq. You had Lebanon. What were the other countries? There's various African ones in there as well. I can't think off the top of my head, but it's an interesting claim that they basically had their economies destroyed.
I don't think it's controversial to say that the economies of countries that went to war with America failed afterwards. They got bombed severely. So it's hard to come out the other side of that without having a bollocks economy. But yeah, it's just interesting to see the chart of the Lebanese and pound here. It looks like a shitcoin, right? On Feb 1st, it looks like the founders rug pulled you. Like suddenly you're like, oh, you're just ticking along, it's going down, but nothing's too bad. And then woof, it's all the money's gone. And that was their huge reset of their currency. And that was the rug pull, right? If this isn't shitcoin land, I've seen these charts a lot. These straight lines. It's not fast up or anything. It's just 100% straight. The market closes at one price, reopens at 5-10 difference.
You'll get a lot of people who argue saying, "Oh, it's Lebanon. It's a shithole. It's going to happen anyway." What would you be your response to that?
It's just the fiat currencies are collapsing all the time, and yeah, this is where we're going through the stage of fiat collapsing, and it tends to be the weakest economies fail first. So we're in the classic domino thing where the smallest dominoes fall first, but slowly but surely they're all knocking over a slightly bigger domino, and the biggest one at the end is the US economy, and just try and point to a fact that is America or anyone in Europe not following the same pattern as Lebanon, as Argentina, as Venezuela, as Nigeria? Are any of them doing anything different? Are they being more sound with their printing? Are they being more sound with the use of their money? Are they saying different things? And if they were, I would say, yeah, the Lebanon model doesn't fit because they are the outlier. They were reckless, other countries aren't. But you look at it and you go, all that's happened with Lebanon is they had a smaller economy that they didn't have the leverage to go in kind of raid other countries for wealth to prop up their own economy. That's what America's doing. And once America has raided everyone and taken everything, then their economy collapses. But they just happen to be the biggest bully in the playground at the moment.
Yeah.
So they're taking all the money.
Just think about the shit in the UK. I think we've talked about it before. HS2, HS1, track and trace, billions upon these silly things where they're basically just siphoning off money. And then the countries which are collapsing, you've got Nigeria, which we talked about 2 weeks ago. It's happening there. You've got Argentina, where it's been happening for the last 100 years, but they've got to be, they're basically getting bankrolled by the IMF, so that's going to cause some massive issues. Brazil's having issues as well. Turkey and hyperinflation. What other countries? I think there's quite a list at the moment.
So it's interesting you raise this, and I think it's a really good point in terms of every country is doing exactly the same in terms of from an inflation perspective. It's just at what rate. So in research for today's pod, I came across this website, which again I've put in the chat, which we can put into the show notes, which is the World Population Review and the inflation rates of 2022. And it gives us the top 10 countries with the highest inflation rates. Surprise, surprise, our favorite friend Venezuela comes out at number one with 1,198% inflation. Around about a third of that is Sudan at 340%. Then Lebanon, Syria, Suriname, Zimbabwe, Argentina at 51%, Turkey 36.1%, Iran.
These out of
Ethiopia.
date, because Argentina, I swear, is near 100% rather than 50.
Well, this was, I don't even trust the figures because I think I remember we spoke about it on the pod where. With Turkey, I spoke to people who were directly in Turkey, and they said it was more like 50%, if not more. So this figure of 36.1, I don't really trust anyway.
It's based on the CPI, isn't it?
It says 11.86. I thought it was in hundreds as well in Turkey, so they can't afford shit.
Mm.
Yeah, well, if you click on the UK, ours says 1.5.
Exactly.
So we know it's
Come
wrong.
on.
We know it's
Yeah.
a factor of 10 on that one. We're at 15, not 1.5.
So
Yeah.
picking out the countries, and here we've got Zimbabwe 676. So England's 1.5. What the hell is Zimbabwe then? Zambia is 14%, so that's going to be quite high. Angola, Iran, Turkmenistan.
Yeah.
There's a whole host of these. Not Argentina, like I said, is much higher. It's saying the US is 1.5, but we know it's more like 8. Well, it's 8 officially. So times it by 3. Yeah, that's very interesting. And it's quite centered around, well, South America, Middle East, and Africa as well.
Yeah. I'm not too sure I trust the data and the stats on this, but I do believe that they've got, if anything, they've got the right countries, just not necessarily the right numbers.
Yeah, in my mind, like it's essentially, I think with fiat collapsing, for me, it's as obvious as seeing a huge tsunami coming towards us, right? And you can see it knocking over all the things on its way to us, and people are just going, yeah, but it's miles away. But it's massive. This wave is so big, it's clearly going to make it to here. So I was just knocked over the little islands. It's not going to hit us. And that's as obvious
That's a really good point.
What the inflation thing to me is. It's a case of, oh, it's only knocking over the small countries. It's a case of they're just first, and they were just more corrupt or just had even more reckless and didn't have. We know that in Europe and in America we have the strongest economies. We kind of control the world, right? So everyone else plays by our they're the puppets to the Europe and to America, really, whether they like it or not. They play to our tune. If they don't, they know what's going to come. They either get IMF, they get sanctioned, or they get bombed to shit. They're the kind of the options if you don't play. And playing basically means get into huge amounts of debt and just give us all your money and natural resources. Well,
it is a Ponzi scheme, isn't it? I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. Like, one of the initial arguments is Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme. But when you actually look into fiat currency, it is a giant Ponzi scheme. They need your resources in order to keep sustaining. So like America, they need your money, they need your resources. It's exactly like Rome. Rome had to invade country after country in order to keep their infrastructure together. Otherwise, they would go broke. And when they stopped taking over countries, because it was such a far reach to keep all their current countries captured, then Rome fell over and it burnt to the ground. And it's almost like that's where the US is. It's looking at, well, what's next? Sri Lanka? I think
not only that, it's also continuing to be at war as well, so that they can, from the contracts for the weapons and the military, that they will get more money from, because all of the guns, the tanks, the airplanes, etc., they're supplying this to the other countries who are then buying it from them, which then obviously continues the cycle.
No,
as well.
they gave those things to Ukraine. We're not expecting payment back.
There's an even worse reason why countries stay at war, because normally it's the power. It's to keep their soldiers and the arms finely tuned, because they know one of the big boys is going to come challenge them for the top spot. And what they don't want to be is have an army that is a decade out of date and someone else just comes in and wipes them out. So they like picking on people smaller than them just to keep their aim in and make sure all their guns work, test out all their aircraft and their new fancy bombs, keep a nice, fully funded army with all the latest gear and be at the front of the technology in that area. So if one of the big boys that's in the top 10 looks around and goes, you know what, I might just take them over by force. Are you ready? And it's really sick to think that you start wars just for practice,
Yeah.
It's pretty brutal to even think that happens. But over the years, it's happening again. You always just go, how can you even imply something like that? It's like, well, it's happened in history. The The Romans did it. The Egyptians did it. Like, everyone does it. Everyone likes to stay at war. It gives the leaders a good reason to keep their armies well funded, nice and sharp. So when the real threat comes, you're ready to go. And
yeah, because it's a case in point, which the Russian army are apparently, because we're not too sure what's going on there between Russia and Ukraine. If you try Googling it, to everybody that's listening, please send us the info of what's going on, because we can't find any evidence in terms of what the boots on the grounds are saying. But essentially, the Russian army have lost a lot of their army because they're out of date.
allegedly,
They're allegedly, allegedly.
They're
pulling in civilians to help and to continue to battle with the war, and allegedly, maybe true, they want to pull out and want to try and form some sort of peace deal with Ukraine, because they realize this isn't one that we're going to win. But no, America won't let them, and Orban won't let Ukraine sign that peace deal, because it's like, well, no, we're having too much fun here, and we can carry on doing what we're doing, and we can drag it out a little bit longer.
Yeah. Should we move on to a small country that should be going through hyperinflation right now, but isn't? Instead, they've moved on to a Bitcoin standard, and bizarrely,
his favorite holiday destination,
which is going to fail according to the IMF, isn't it?
Yeah, destined to fail. Yeah, it's our favorite new nation that neither us, not any of us, had any fucking clue barely existed 2 years ago, but it's now our favorite. Is our favorite country, and so it's El Salvador, right? So
yeah,
it's obviously gone. You talk about Dr. Evil because you saw these stories today, and it's it makes sense.
I started seeing a lot of media coverage about El Salvador, and it wasn't exactly positive. It was on about how El Salvador has these tyrannical prisons, and you're kind of going, okay, maybe a point around this. But then you actually look at this and look at the underlying stats. So when we first talked about El Salvador, when we moved to a Bitcoin standard, it had the worst murder rate in the world, which is phenomenal stat. Well, I don't know if phenomenal is the right word, because it is pretty horrid.
Yeah.
And it has a very notorious gang which seems to pretty much own the country, which is it MS-13?
Yeah, something like
that. So murder a lot of people, rape a lot of people. So I think I read it, don't know how true this is, but I read a story that they had a rule that if there were any blonde people in the country, they would kill them. And quite often they'd rape them first. So women that this is. So they're not exactly the nicest gang. And the videos which we're seeing from Reuters is these heavily tattooed people, tattoos on their forehead, tattoos on their face, tattoos on their heads, all the traits of apparently MS-13. And they're saying El Salvador's government moved thousands of suspected gang members to a newly opened mega prison, the latest step in a controversial crackdown on crime that's caused the Central American nation's prison population to soar. So these are all these prisoners with their hands on their heads, running around, surrounded by these heavily armoured prison guards who look like they'd take out a good 30 people before if they tried to riot. And all the comments, funnily enough, are, how is this controversial? El Salvador has a lot of violent crime. It's where MS-13 originated. Violent criminals should be in prison. The title says it all about this propaganda outlet. They said the latest step in a controversial crackdown on crime that has caused the Central African nation's prison population to soar. What's happening? Murderers, rapists, gang members being arrested, causing crime to fall. And I think I mentioned before, the murder rate is halved in the last, is it a year or two? Since Bukalele's really hammered down on this gang. So very, very interesting.
Here that says, like on the second tweet that I linked, I don't know if it's true because there's an article that seems to say it is, but it says that they're 300 days with no homicides. So that's 0 murders in 300 days. That's nearly a year. So that almost seems too good, right? Because you're always going to get some domestic murders. You're going to get husband and wives falling out and stabbing each other, shooting each other, and but to go from having the worst crime rate per person, the highest murder rate, to zero over the last year is nuts, right? And one of the things I was just thinking about that stat, it might even mean that people are so terrified to commit any type of crime in El Salvador right now because they know they just got a zero tolerance on it. You're going to get wrapped up in this. They're obviously just looking to completely get the bad guys off the streets and put them in prison. And obviously where the human rights violations are coming in, and where I can see people have a point, is that there's no way, and they admit as well, that they're not giving each person their day in court. They are rounding up these people en masse, going, you're all part of a gang. Therefore, we're just going to try the gang as a whole and go, what crimes is this gang associated with? It's all this. Therefore, that is life imprisonment. So you're associated to the gang, bang, life. And the problem with these things always will be is who knows what kids got pressured into this, got forced to have tattoos just to fit in, haven't committed any crime whatsoever other than just trying to fit in and not get killed themselves. And then bang, the police come round you all up, throw you in the back of a van, and some 18-year-old kid has now got life imprisonment and he's done nothing. It's always the downside of these things. So I see those points. But that's essentially what it always comes down to is it's collateral damage, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to get rid of this problem, and you know full well you're going to catch some innocents in the net. And what made me laugh about it, at least the hypocrisy of a lot of Americans that were talking about this, they're obviously anti-Bitcoin. They're using this to push like, oh, this is what the crypto bros want. It's the fact they come from America. And the last time I remember something like this happening was Guantanamo Bay. Yeah, when obviously 9/11 happened, what did America do? They felt like they had a huge terrorism problem against their country. They went into their own people, into Afghanistan, into Iraq, rounded up loads of people, flew them on planes. They knew they couldn't even do it on their own soil. They didn't want to change their constitution. So they rented an island in freaking Guantanamo, put a big prison there, threw thousands of people in, didn't charge anyone, didn't arrest anyone, but they didn't have they were outside the Geneva Convention, so they could hold people indefinitely. They tortured people to try and find out more about the terrorist rings that were happening, and to try and stop terrorism in America. And arguably, we're 20 years after they did all that, and all they've pretty much done is apologize. And it's still not shut down, by the way. I looked at it today. There's still 30 odd people in Guantanamo Bay right now, over 20 years after it opened. All these people have not been charged with a single thing. They're just sat there, suspected of things, but not proven. Because if they had been proven, they get shipped off to America, put in prison. There's 32 people just sat in no man's land in Guantanamo Bay. So it's one of them where you go, right, well, if you do disapprove of this, then you have to reflect and go, America did this 20 years ago. There's people still there. So, and obviously America did it before that as well. They did it with all the mobsters. Why do we know who Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and all those guys are? It's because of Scarface, The Casino, all those great films. But what were they doing? That was all the mobs, the gangs of New York, and they were running the place. Right, it's very similar to what was happening in El Salvador. So what did the government do? They knew they couldn't prosecute each person individually because each time they got one person, they were recruiting faster than they could do it. So you have to just go, we need to get them all at once. You just got to throw a big net around the whole lot, scoop them in. There's a load of corrupt police in here as well. We need to get all the police in the net as well, get all the criminals in the net, and just kind of start fresh. And it worked.
Yeah, it was Rudy Giuliani in New York that came up with the RICO law. Yeah, the RICO Act, and then just got them all.
And it worked, right? And undoubtedly in that net, I can guarantee they caught some innocent people. There'll be a load of innocent people in prison, probably for their entire lives, who did absolutely nothing wrong, were just associated with the wrong person at the wrong time, had a few phone calls with their mate who happened to be a mobster, and they got caught in the net, and then they end up in prison.
Because looking at that video, there looks like there are some kids in prison, as you say, and they probably, through no fault of their own, just they have to do those things in order to survive, not because they want to do it, but because if they don't kill, they will be killed or family members harmed.
Yeah.
So I do think there's probably two sides to the story in the tale, because we saw it, I'm sure, within Narcos, where the drug dealers were the kids. They were helping for Pablo Escobar in the favelas and so forth. So it is, it's all there, isn't it?
Yeah.
But El Salvador being ridiculed and condemned by mainstream media is where we were going with all of this, and it's being done so because El Salvador have decided to be the first on the opposite side of the inflation tsunami, being the first to be like, no, we're going to be on the Bitcoin standard, and the Bitcoin standard has helped us clean up the streets, take some of these people. It's probably the classic Pareto law principle of 80% of them are, wrong uns, and they need to be up. And unfortunately, 20% have got caught up in it. But this is all down to what Bitcoin fixes. And Bitcoin has fixed the fact that they were the murder capital of the world.
Yeah, and now they've gone from being number one on the list to bottom with zero, which I don't quite believe that numbers, but like all their financial numbers are on their up, right? And it's crazy to think that because the thing is, it's always, you got to balance it, haven't you? You got to go, right, maybe there's a couple of hundred kids in here that have got caught up in it, but how long would it have taken for these gangs to kill a couple of hundred people? And it probably wouldn't have taken long, right? It probably would have taken, 6 months, a year. So you go, essentially, it's all about trade-offs. This is always the difficult thing. This is what really annoyed me about the whole lockdown thing, right? Because the lockdown was positioned as if you lock down, you save everyone. If you don't lock down, maybe a load of grannies die. And it's a case of that is the wrong way of phrasing the argument. If you lock down, a load of people with cancer die because they can't get care. A load of old people die because they can't get care. A load of people die from suicide, drug abuse, alcoholism. You get domestic abuse going up, all these things. So that is the decision, right? You're not going, the two options are not good and bad. There's two kind of bad options, and different people die in both options. And to really know which one you want to pick, you have to just acknowledge the one you pick, people die. And that's, I think, what Bukelele has done here. And he's gone, there's people dying in my country all the time, and they are innocents. They are people trying to live their lives. They're trying to run their businesses. They're women, they're children, they're just normal people. However, if I go and arrest all the gangs and put them all in prison and do a big net over them, I know I'm going to ruin, 500 people's lives completely unnecessarily, and it was nothing to do with them. So, right, there's 500 people here. How many people have I got on the other side if I do nothing? Well, I've got 5,000 a year, every year. Right. Unfortunately, that's the decision I'm picking. I'm going to put 500 innocent people in prison, but I will save 5,000 people's lives every year. And it's horrible. And people don't like hearing that type of stuff, but it's not, there's not a good option and a bad option. There's two bad options. And I think he's picked the least bad option. And that's what he's doing.
Bukelele, that's a man.
Yeah, make him hard. Take him hard. Take him hard decisions. It's ultimately what you expect leaders to do.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's like you said, the coverage has been insane, and again, it's all propaganda, right? So when people search the word El Salvador, that don't really know that they're into Bitcoin or that kind of thing, what they're doing here is they're just filling the press with very bad imagery of El Salvador. They're all these people in chains, virtually naked, hands behind their back, tightly grouped in lines. This is when Bitcoin continues to take off and El Salvador gets stronger and stronger. They're building this up as a nice ball of content. So it just discredits them as a country, right? It's like, oh, why are you using El Salvador as an example? They are human rights violators. Look how barbaric they are to their own people. Because all the stories are going to say this, right? There's not a single story that's been written.
I've just gone to Google Images, typed in El Salvador. You get a flag, a map, then it's the prisoners, then a map, then prisoners, map, flag, prisoners, map, volcano, prisoner, some kind of food, landscape, prisoners, map, prisoners.
There you go. See that they're rewriting history, right? They're marketing, they're rebranding El Salvador as human rights violators who treat their people disgustingly, even though these people are, they'll completely leave out that they were number one crime capital of the world. They literally were the worst country in the world. They used to be. And Bukele took over and he's correcting it and he's making them into one of the safest countries in the world. And instead of getting praise for that, he should be. They've got all these Nobel Peace Prizes and all these freaking Nobel awards for all these various things. I can guarantee Bukele will not get close to any of them. Instead, he's being vilified for everything he's done.
Because you're right. Because it's not talking about how the popularity of El Salvador has increased and tourism has increased. Because tourists are now happy to go to El Salvador.
The crime rates are decreasing.
Yeah. And it's not showing Bitcoin Beach, which a lot of people obviously go to El Salvador to experience. And all these good things will just simply, be washed away or not obviously spoken about, but they are there.
Yeah, it's the problem as well. When we then speak to our friends and family positive about El Salvador, they'll go, I can already feel it. I know they're going to type it in and they're going to go, oh, you don't want to get in trouble there. They just arrest you and put you in prison forever. Like, dude, I'm not part of one of the gangs that freaking got rounded up. I'm just going to be a tourist. It's like, well, that's the only story that I read on Google about it. And the only thing I'm surprised about so far is they don't have anything about Bukele himself personally. I'm sure if they keep digging, they can find some ex-girlfriend.
He must know. They would have had that by now. He must be
so clean because everyone's got someone that will just.
It sounds like he's going to have a plane crash.
it does. Yeah. Anyway, we've got to get through these stories. All right.
Yeah.
Next one. Let's go on to he looks like the final boss of fiat, this guy. And apparently Bitcoin's lost the battle against national currency. It's all been I didn't realize.
If you look at his history on Wiki, he's like IMF all over the place, Mexico Central Bank and all sorts. I looked at a picture of him. I'm just like, the only thing which has been lost is his fight against the vending machine.
I want to see his Just Eat Bell.
He is, what's his name? Kingpin from Spider-Man. He's got the pinstripe suit. The inflation literally runs within him.
I do wonder at these kind of people, like, how can a person who looks like that tell you what to do?
Correct.
Like, anything with money, work, anything, how can you listen to him?
And just so anyone wonders, this is the BIS chief, which is the Bank for International Settlements, is Augustin Carstens. And literally, when you think about in your head, what is the meme guy, fat cat banker, whatever image you got in your head, make it even fatter. Now you're halfway, do it again. That's it. He's literally a big round ball, isn't he?
Yeah.
And according to him, and this is what we knew they're going to do, right? We knew they're going to do this. They're declaring that they've won. And his main reason that I could kind of get from this, is all a little bit all over the place, is the fact that Sam Bankman-Fried's FTX exchange crashed, therefore proving Bitcoin doesn't have a use case. You go, okay, those two things aren't linked at all. Sam Bankman-Fried is a scammer. He's part of you fucking clowns. And it's one exchange. Even if he wasn't a scammer linked to the deep state, even if it was Coinbase, even if it was Kraken, even if these things had gone bust, it doesn't mean Bitcoin is any more or less valuable. Bitcoin's still struggling along behind the scenes. But FTX was a shitcoin casino. They had one Bitcoin.
But didn't you know that only the legal historical infrastructure behind central banks can give great credibility to money?
I didn't know that, but thank you.
Did you not realize that fractional reserves, where in the US are not even required to keep any money to back up the money which you've got, is the way forward? Do you not realize that the fact they can print more money every single year with no limit to devalue your savings, to devalue your salary, and to pump up their assets? That gives credibility, not your made-up silly magical internet coins.
So true. The irony and the satire is not lost on you, Dr. Evil 10%.
I do wonder, what will he do when fiat fails? Will he go on the game?
To be fair, well, there's a big market for people that big. Someone would pay for him to sit on their face.
But the thing is, and I know we cover it within our stories. The next story is the fact that CBDCs will become the next thing to kind of spin the narrative even further. So people might eventually cotton on to, hold on, this fiat thing that I'm holding and have loved and cherished ever since for the value of my life. There's something new now, which they're positioning as the next best, greatest thing. And you can see it already happening in society, but little things like there'll be kiosks where you cannot use cash in the local supermarket. So therefore, obviously, it's your card. And once it's no longer your card, those kiosks will change from being card only to a certain CBDC only. And it will force you to move unless people either stand up or you have some other alternative means and ways to make money or to have some form of money and not be reliant on the government.
Yeah, I just love their arrogance of it's like we're all in a fight, and then randomly when I'm like punch you in the face, you just go ding ding ding, I win. What? Like the fight, we're still fighting. Just because this idiot says that we've lost doesn't mean we've lost. But because then he does move on to CBDCs, doesn't he? And go, but maybe these will be backed by the same really sound things that we have run and driven into the floor numerous times and bailed out through inflation. But don't worry, because it's got a blockchain, it's all going to be fine. But what's hilarious about our next story is that there's a number of US congressmen that have come forward and gone, these guys are not Bitcoiners, but they realize the bad things that CBDCs bring. Even like, because we're always going to be biased against CBDC, right? We're like, but if CBDCs are successful, then that means Bitcoin isn't. So
I'm still waiting for what positive a CBDC can bring, because they always talk about the positives, and we're like, they can helicopter money. Whose money? Where's that coming from? And then also, they can do that now if they really want to. PayPal, Venmo, whatever else, or even just standard banks. It'd just be 3-4 days for clearing. There's nothing with CBDCs which is going to bring you any benefits. People who think that it's going to be, what's it called, that like standard amount of money which you get.
Like stimmy?
No, that thing which lefties always talk about.
What?
Like they give you everyone gets £3,000 a month, and therefore it stops everyone being poor.
Right, just UBI.
yeah, UBI. So they're like, oh, bring back UBIs, and it's like, whose money? And also, you do realize that 3,000 then becomes the floor. So literally, it doesn't change a thing. They're just going to keep on inflating, and it's literally it's pointless.
The price of a Big Mac is now £1,000. Now what?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's funny just to see some political views on a CBDC that aren't Bitcoiners, right? They're not trying to hope that Bitcoin is successful. They're just looking at this and going, we want to stay on the fiat we've got because these CBDCs are surveillance tools built on a technology which is just fallacy, which for the first time probably ever, I will ever agree with probably these politicians that have put this forward, because they're probably complete fiat maxis and pro-war and all that kind of bollocks. But on this one, it's like, yeah, you've nailed it. Yeah, they are. This is fiat, but you can completely surveil everyone. You can track every payment. You can restrict payments. You can block people. Everything comes to a single database. And the fact it's on a blockchain doesn't mean absolute fuck all. It's just going to be on a database that sits inside the US government, and all they're going to use that for is to surveil, control their population. And they're going, this is terrifying. We don't want this.
It's literally it's literally the start of every futuristic dystopian nightmare movie. Correct. This is the start, and like, I haven't met anyone who agrees with it, but it's just, it's literally digital food stamps if you're a good boy.
It's similar to Ethereum, isn't it? Or NFTs. No, we haven't been given a good utility use case for NFTs.
Right. Yeah.
We had it as a receipt or a guarantee. That's about as far as we got. So literally at a price of about 50 pence.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only benefit I've heard of all those things is blockchain. And you go, and what's next? That's it. I'm done. I said the word blockchain. I'm done.
Obviously, it's good, but it's not politicians who we've heard of. I'm sure that, what's his name? That Republican who's quite outspoken and a Bitcoiner probably anti-CBDC. But these aren't politicians who I've heard of. And I kind of think that bill won't go anywhere. They need to monitor your $300 transactions for your safety.
It's Tom Emmer. Who knows who Tom Emmer is? But it's just good to see that, like, literally for me, within the fiat world, even they don't like CBDCs. Like, we know they're going to get approved. We know there's nothing the world can do. CBDCs are coming whether people like it or not. There's way too many benefits for government. And what do government want? Profit and control. CBDCs give them that, so they're fucking coming. So it doesn't matter what opposition they get, they're coming. But it's just interesting to see that even the people inside the fiat machine can see the danger. They're trying to stop it, but they're going to get steamrolled. We know it.
Do you know one thing I was thinking about, which controversial, which we may not all agree, is the fact that we've, year 2023, the 4Bs have become a Bitcoin-only show. And by doing that, it means that we only focus and we only discuss Bitcoin-related stories. But are we having a blind spot by not covering anything else? Like, outside of this forum, perhaps read things that you might think, maybe I need to dig a little bit deeper to say, by the way, I don't agree that there is still, but is there a case for CBDCs? Is there a case for NFTs? Is there a case for...
Well, we've read the benefits. The benefits are being put forward by people like Dishi Rishi, in the fact that it's helicopter payments, it's potential to provide UBI, and those can be discredited within about 2 sentences. Like, that's all I've heard, and it'll make the payment system more efficient. But then we look at the downside, and the downside is, even if they are being genuine and they think it's just there for efficiency and all these kind of things in the future, they can always be abused because they are controlled and centralized. and literally just meshes that network to bring complete control over population. So, but I don't believe these people are having a blind spot. They're doing this on purpose because they want it. They can see things are crumbling.
Yeah, and I think it's a fair point. But I think if because the thing is, over what was it? I don't know. We probably did about 80 episodes or something where we did discuss CBDCs, NFTs, and shitcoins nearly every episode, right? We were nearly always laughing at them, but still it ended up having a debate, and the pros and cons came up numerous times, right? And it was just, the reason why I kind of did the New Year's resolution to not do it is because we're having the same conversation over and over. Like, it's just a different shitcoin or different CBDC or a different NFT wrapped in a different sheep's clothing, but it's a wolf underneath, right? It's just a fucking scam. So it's just like, this is pointless. And it's funny, but it ended up taking up too much of the show, and there's lots of Bitcoin stuff, and we haven't got time to discuss it. So I think if something comes up in the future, because obviously it always comes down the Bitcoin funnel, right? All this stuff comes down that funnel. So the next evolution of whatever's going to happen in the next cycle, it's just something new is going to come. Like NFTs and CBDCs will probably just keep trundling along, and shitcoins will trundle along in the background. There's going to be something brand new. And so whatever that is, I think we discuss it and we see what it is. Nearly undoubtedly, I think it's going to be the next evolution of the hype cycle, which is going to suckle in all the dumb money. They're going to pump and dump it. There's going to be a couple of hundred people on crypto Twitter that's going to make 100 million, and there's going to be people all around the world just skint again, and they'll go away for 4 years and come back and get robbed blind again. But yeah, I think in reality, whilst we don't discuss it, I think we're seeing it all. Yeah, and I think if you seriously saw a CBDC or a shitcoin or an NFT that you thought had weight, I think you bring it to the table. But I'm pretty closed off now. You know, I'm talking Love Island. I'm talking Love Island speech now. I'm like, my head's not getting turned. You know, I'm Bitcoin only, and I don't care whatever.
Pick your partner.
Whatever bombshell hottie walks in, shitcoin. I'm committed. I'm in a loving relationship now, but seriously, I think it's still on the
That's
data,
a thumbnail right there.
I'm kind of just sitting here going,
Love Island thumbnail.
What are you two talking about in Love Island?
I've never watched it, but I totally get your analogy.
I've never watched it, but I've got no idea what kind of speak he was using.
And that's why you're Dr. Evil 10%.
Fuck you, Love Island.
You're too busy furiously masturbating to me to hear what they're saying. But no, I think it's like, don't trust, verify, right? And I know all the time, right? If Bitcoin ever lost its core kind of foundation, where it wasn't scarce, I thought it wasn't decentralized. If I thought transactions,
I'm jumping off the building if that ever happened, because the amount of ridicule.
Before you jump off,
ridicule.
If any of these things, so if the censorship resistant failed, scarcity failed, decentralization failed, and if any of those failed, then I would be selling all of my Bitcoin. You know, I'm not part of a cult. I would leave if the solid foundation that makes Bitcoin sound money isn't true anymore.
Would you then go all in on SHIB?
I'm put 2% in SHIB, but no, I think, what would I do at the moment?
This is a good question, isn't it? So if we weren't Bitcoin, and obviously we are Bitcoin, where would we then go from here? Because this consumes my mind way too much.
I think in reality, I would, if Bitcoin wasn't here, I would just do an S&P 500 tracker, and probably with the majority of it, and then just
you'd go Vanguard.
No, I wouldn't go that stupid. No, because again, a Vanguard is diversification that erodes your gains, right? It's silly. So instead, I just do an S&P tracker myself. It costs less as well. They charge less fees. So just shove it in an ETF. And then I would then I probably would get back into my stock picking, and I'd find another. I go and have a little look in the latest macro trends by AI and all that kind of stuff, and I try and find the next couple of. So I'd have to go back into all the stuck in stock market. I'd probably put a load into gold as well. I'd probably go and put like 20-30% in gold if Bitcoin failed.
Wow,
gold, property, stocks, probably.
Yeah, it's recorded. He'd go gold.
But the interesting thing is, I don't think that there's no. I don't drop down to ETH or Ripple or whatever else is there. It's like no. If Bitcoin has failed, I can guarantee those other ones have already. That they will follow it fucking fast. It's like the whole experiment is over. So. And at the moment, just in case anyone's really worried, Bitcoin has not failed. It is still scarce, it is still decentralized, and it's still censorship resistant. But they're the things. It's and I review those every single day. I review them every day. I log on to Bitcoin Twitter and I make sure is Bitcoin still sound and is the hash rate still high, transactions still happening. Has anyone had any transactions censored? If any of these things start to happen and that or trends that way, I'll start to get worried and go, Bitcoin's turning into fiat. Once it does, then it's not sound money, and the money will move to where sound money is. That is, as we know.
You log into LinkedIn and insult a load of people.
Oh yeah, I do that anyway.
Yeah.
I had another screenshot sent to me on LinkedIn just from someone I've spoken to in about 4 years, being like, "You make me laugh on LinkedIn. I can't like them, but you make me laugh." I'm like, okay. It's nice to know I'm like your private, your entertainment.
Those will eventually, when you've won, is when those become publicly liked. That's when we've started to turn the corner, where more and more people aren't afraid to be like, I hit that button.
Yeah, that'd be the first little thing. I want to see other people saying what I'm saying in my network. Yeah. I'm the only one that's actually saying stuff. And then the only people that are liking it, like it through a DM and go, that was funny. Like, you didn't like the post. It's like, I can't, I'll get fired.
I will say Dan Held says quite a lot on LinkedIn.
Yeah, well, he's just like me. He's not employed by anyone. He can say what he wants.
But there's a lot of people that like his tweets publicly, and it's kind of like, oh, it's safe to like him, but we can't like Mad Mr. All-In.
Yeah, mad. Yeah, you can't do that. Yeah, no. Right. He's a little bit probably more refined than me as well. I'm a little bit more rough around the edges.
Wow. I love it. But you know what I also think about, just when you talk about this stock picking, because Dr. Evil 10% and I, we talk about it as well. I just don't have the energy for it, because it goes back to the Michael Saylor conversation. It's like, why bother? Like, I think about the funds and just following the S&P. But other than that, I'm just like, it's a no-brainer. Just do Bitcoin or just save it. And for me, as I say, I'll do property for the cash flow, but any other stock, it just doesn't make sense. And again, when I was listening to the Money Mind of Warren Buffett, who do I actually think that I am, that I'm going to find these diamonds in the rough that are not already found to beat the S&P 500? Stop it. There are professionals that are out there that are doing this full time, and all of a sudden I'm going to understand the ins and outs of a company and a business that I have no knowledge of and no dealings with and no inside knowledge, which they do have, and I'm going to win? Nah.
Yeah. And like we saw,
got more chance of Mrs. No-Show showing up.
Yeah. But it's literally, and I always think as well, going back to that story we had about the Lebanon pound and its conversion into Bitcoin, that straight line, right? That straight line, which is just suddenly, I can afford, my DCA in Bitcoin. Oh, fuck, now Bitcoin's 100 times more expensive for me because my currency hit hyperinflation. That, when we say Bitcoin is inevitable, that's is what we mean, right? It's the domino effect that I explained before. Like with dominoes, every single country is going to see that straight line, and we will see that straight line. America will see that straight line, and so no matter what you are invested in, when that straight line happens, if you're not in Bitcoin, you're at the bottom of the line. If you were in Bitcoin, you rise to the top of it. It's your choice, because the rest of the world will be in Bitcoin, whereas you will be in your country's assets. And randomly, one day of the year, at some point in the future, just like what happened to Lebanon, everyone's going to devalue your assets by 10x. 90% of the value gone overnight. So it doesn't matter what you're in. It won't matter how good a stock pick you made. It's gone. 90% gone overnight.
It's funny you say that as well. I had I don't know if it's a dream or a nightmare, where I just woke up.
Was it a wet dream?
It was like a tsunami. Going to continue along that line. And it just happened. It happened, like, as in Bitcoin hyper Bitcoinization happened overnight.
Were we in the Apache helicopter above the company office, drinking JD?
I'm sailing down with a bottle of whiskey, ready to launch through the window.
Pride flags.
Yeah. I'm burning. A cocktail basically. But yeah, I was just like, I woke up and it's like, it's happened, hasn't it? It hadn't happened, but I just feel like it will happen exactly like that. Like we had it 2 weeks ago, right, where it was a 20% jump. We've recorded, all of a sudden the next day, bam, just like that, out of nowhere. And I feel like that will be the tipping point. And that will also be the tipping point in everybody's mind of being like, fuck, we missed it.
Yeah. It's always...
You might be able to have a job cleaning one of our boats, or the boat on our boats.
Indeed.
Anyway, Blue Wallet.
Yeah.
This was a scary story, right? And... because Blue Wallet is the wallet that I recommend as a great Lightning wallet. But it was custodial, right? So basically custodial, for anyone that doesn't know, that is basically means Blue Wallet run that Lightning wallet. So there's a certain element of risk. They could have just taken the funds because you're opening up channels, and with Blue Wallet, they could close the channels and just take the sats. Always a risk. What you should do is run your own Lightning node. So then you are opening the channel and you are in total control of where your sats are. So they're basically saying that they are discontinuing their custodial Lightning wallet by April 3rd, 2023, which is basically in about 4 weeks' time, the end of next month. So if you have any sats sat in a Lightning wallet, then get them off because you won't be able to after that point. So I logged into that because obviously that's what I use for Bitcoin lessons. It's how it's nice and easy, right? It's sometimes channels can be quite hard to get to people around the world. So it's a nice, easy way of just sending sats around, but there's loads of other choices. So it's forced me to go and have a look at other Lightning options just to see. Obviously I have my own Lightning nodes as well, but yeah, so one of the things that I definitely learned as well is that I probably had a few too many sats sat in my Lightning wallet. I think I put them on quite a while ago, and the value had grown to an amount which I wasn't really comfortable with having sat in a Lightning wallet, and I don't know why I'd left them there for that long. So because I've moved to Kraken recently instead of shitty Coinbase, who still have blocked my account, Kraken accept Lightning transactions. They are the only exchange that do accept Lightning. So I just fired off a transaction from Blue Wallet into Kraken, had all my sats sat there instantly, and then could fire them back to a hardware wallet until I decide what I want to do. So nice and easy. And it's just a shout out to Kraken really to go, they're the only one that support Lightning. They're fucking ace. because the problem is once you convert your sats into Lightning, it's quite hard to get it out of Lightning back into the BTC protocol onto the base layer. It's not particularly easy, but Kraken make it seamless because they just count it as sats. If you're converting it on wallets, if you convert Bitcoin into Lightning, putting it back from Lightning into BTC on the main chain isn't easy. It's not easy.
Yeah.
You
because
can't
it's so small.
Well, it's just not a thing. It's sending it one way is easy, sending it back's harder. I don't quite get the technicalities of it, right? This is one of these weird things. But in Blue Wallet, converting your sats that were sat in a Bitcoin wallet into sats in a Lightning wallet, piece of piss. Yeah, you just send them over. If you'd ever tried sending those sats from a Lightning wallet back, it doesn't let you.
No.
Can't go the other way. It's kind of just spend them now or leave it in Lightning kind of forever. And there was actually a whole workaround that you could do. Yeah. And because I'd learned this because through my own thing where I'd converted some money and I went, oh, I want to send it back, and I couldn't. And then I had to research how I did it. I had to use my own node and use a couple of APIs to get it all switched around. And I was like, that was a little bit clunky, right? It was a bit bad that money only goes one way. That sounds like a scam, right? It's kind of that's always one of the indications of the scam, right? When money goes in, it can never come out. But it's just kind of it's the way the protocol kind of works. Opening up things, opening up channels is quite difficult. And if you let people take it out too quick, you've got to close the channel, and basically a lot of scamming can happen. So again, it's another example of where Lightning needs to mature. But if you're fine leaving Bitcoin in the Lightning network, it's completely fine. You can just spend it. No one else is going to spend it. But it's a shame that obviously Blue Wallet are closing down their service. This was my go-to wallet, so I'm going to have to look at some others. Have any of you guys got any sat in your Blue Wallet Lightning?
Yeah, just looked now. I've got 10 pence worth of.
I've got some on my old phone. I need to transfer them across.
They're probably from me, aren't they? When I was selling,
I think so.
Yeah. That's it.
And we're playing about with them because I haven't had any use out of it. There's been no need.
It was 2 years ago, it's saying on the Blue Wallet that transaction took place. So, yeah, ever since then, I've not really needed to. But, 7,239 Satoshis are sat there right now.
No, it's shameful. I looked down my... Oh, man. See, when my first Lightning transaction was 4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
It was Hodlnaut. So
you sent some to Hodlnaut.
Yeah. Well, it was... Hodlnaut first got famous for starting the Lightning chain on Twitter, where it was just, I think he started off at 1 sat or 10 sats, and then it gets sent to someone, and you make it 11 sats, 12, 13, 40.
Right.
And it went like that. So I was part of that chain, right? So I think I got it 347th, I think, because I sent 300. I received 347 sats and then sent on 348. But then I also started playing poker on Lightning. I can see here. May have lost some sats playing poker, and I'm not going to work it out. That was when I was experimenting with Lightning Bitcoin poker, and we're not going to look at how many hundreds of thousands of sats got sent to that website and never came back.
All right. Well, sad to see Blue Wallet go, but I'm sure this is, it's going to be one of those things. Our favorites are no longer going to be our favorites, and new things will come in. We've already seen it for yourself in terms of Coinbase and then moving over to Kraken. You talk about it quite passionately. So today, tomorrow, I'm going to open up a Kraken account as a new backup. I've always been a fan of Bitpanda as well as Gemini, but as we've heard, Gemini, through their whole staking thing, you couldn't take out money, so that was stupid anyway in terms of staking. But they've stopped withdrawals with regards to that. And talking of which, I saw something else today where Coinbase have delisted the Binance coin as well. So there's beef there between Coinbase and Binance. No surprise.
And by the way, just for clarity about Blue Wallet, by the way, just before you carry on, is that they've only discontinued the custodial Lightning wallet. Their main Bitcoin wallet is still live and active. So I've still got sats with Blue Wallet. It's just the Lightning wallet is they're discontinuing. And their explanation is it was like 4 years ago, they just fired this up as a little experiment and it kind of took off. And they don't make any money out of it, but it keeps loads and loads of maintenance. And so they're essentially losing money on it. They go, look, we need to be a little bit smarter. Like, I know it's great that we're helping Lightning, but we're losing money. So we're going to discontinue this and move you to Lightning specific products that their business model is around Lightning. Ours is just around collecting a little bit of fees on the Bitcoin transactions. So Blue Wallet is still definitely a thing. Don't go deleting Blue Wallet. They're great for the main chain, but for Lightning wallets, we're going to have to find another one.
On it. And any viewer suggestions as well. We'll come back with ours, but always open to any interaction from you, the listeners. So the last story for tonight's pod is Bitcoin privacy keeps getting easier. So again, a story delivered to us via the Bitcoin magazine, which is a great app as well. I find it's really good with regards to stuff. But do you want to explain the story, Mr. Orland? Because this is quite a technical thing, I think.
A little bit, yeah. So essentially, it's great news for Bitcoin. So BTC Pay Server has added CoinJoin, a plugin for merchants. So what that means is essentially, if you wanted to sell anything online and accept Bitcoin for it, the easiest way to do that is just plug in BTC Pay Server. Instead of having to code up all your own infrastructure and software to accept Bitcoin, you just use the plugin, which is BTC Pay Server. But up until now, there was no option to add privacy to those transactions. So CoinJoin and Wasabi Wallet are kind of the two biggest ones. We've discussed them numerous times on here.
Yeah.
But at the moment, they are purely based on, for the private individual, if you want to have some Bitcoin and CoinJoin it or send it to Wasabi Wallet, to basically have it tumble dried. I think in the fiat world, you call this money laundering. But essentially, you put one set of Bitcoin in, which might have KYC and essentially identities attached to it. You tumble dry it and it comes out the other end and no one knows where it came from. Although, as we've discussed, potentially can still if you try hard enough. But either way, if everyone was to do this, it becomes very hard, because the only reason that some people have been able to uncoin join your transaction is because the amount of Bitcoin being coin joined is very small. So if the majority of people that are sending Bitcoin to merchants, buying and selling stuff on the internet, most of them use BTC Pay Server. So now, with a click of a button, they can just add CoinJoin or Wasabi Wallet to that transaction. And now suddenly they have no clue where the Bitcoin came from, no clue, kind of what the Bitcoin that they receive is just a random bit of Bitcoin, So this whole tainted stuff, the coin analysis bollocks, which they're trying to taint certain Bitcoin to say this is illegal Bitcoin and all that kind of stuff, becomes much, much harder with this. And it's a great move in the right direction for the entire industry, because if every Bitcoin transaction, which is what we need to get to, we need every merchant, every hardware wallet, every exchange, everything, just to have CoinJoin or Wasabi bolted on as default. And so every transaction will be as anonymous as it can be. Even if you're sending it from a KYC wallet, it won't matter. No one will know at the other end who sent it to them. It'll just be a random amount of Bitcoin that arrives at the other end. And that's what we need. We need privacy for Bitcoin. It's the one thing that is really missing in Bitcoin is privacy. It's having an open blockchain is great because you can audit everything, see how much Bitcoin is available, But we don't want to know who's sending what Bitcoin to who. We don't need to know that stuff. The only people that care
why do you need privacy if you're not doing anything illegal?
Well, according to the government, we're all doing something illegal. So if you're not doing something illegal today, it'll be illegal tomorrow.
Yeah.
And also, I'm doing a lot of illegal things. But it looks good. What do you guys think?
I suppose it's just actually using, because I've never actually spent any Bitcoin.
Yes. And I think that's a big thing, isn't it? For us, we're still hodling and stacking. And not in the case of living off a Bitcoin standard. Yeah. And, people in El Salvador, people with, to the point where they're like, okay, yeah, I'm happy to spend some of my stack and this will become more of a thing. But I think it's good for mainstream as well, because the more people that use it, the more people will just become familiar with Bitcoin, and it won't be this dark art. It'll just be seamless.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think this is great for people that value their privacy, but I think unfortunately, and it's not an insult. I just think because I don't either. I think the majority of people don't value their privacy, and they're fine with the government surveilling their transactions, which is why we use the banking system for the majority of our transactions. We know the government are looking in. We know they have complete authority to have a look because of various money laundering, AML, KYC regulations. Because they exist, it means they can just take a look at whatever they want, just to make sure you're not a fraudster or a criminal. They're allowed to check every single transaction every time you sign up for a website. They're allowed to check everything. But there's a whole group of people that are real hardcore Bitcoiners that just fucking hate that, and they just want privacy. So this will allow them to do it much easier. And I think as we move on, this is again a little bit like the tsunami that's come in. You don't care about your privacy until the government start pressuring you. So it's only today, like my missus tried to send a transaction to an independent contractor. She was paying her for a session for something, and PayPal just said no. It was just like no. Your account is under restriction or something at the moment, or it was something about the two accounts. It just triggered an alert, and I think it's just the fact that they're both kind of self-employed that they just went, oh, this looks a little bit weird. So PayPal just blocked that transaction, right? And I think that just needs to happen to more and more people until you realize that Bitcoin doesn't block transactions. It's not PayPal, it's not your bank, and then once you're in Bitcoin, you still don't want those same people that have been imposing all these random restrictions on you looking at what you're doing. You just want to obfuscate it and go, look, it's none of your fucking business. I know that you're going to know that I probably own a couple of addresses, but each time I send some Bitcoin, I want it to fucking just disappear in a spider web of transactions, and you can't follow where it goes. Because even now I'm just buying my groceries, it's none of your fucking business.
Yeah.
Because it isn't. I don't want you knowing it, because at some point in the future, you might decide to go, oh, don't like that one. That one's increased your carbon footprint by too much. You go fuck yourself, I'll have as much steak as I want. I know I'm buying freaking 4 cows a week, and I'm going to continue to do so.
And that's a good way to end the show. Right. Anything from you, Dr. Evil 10%?
Nah, no kind of insult. So we're going to say this show is brought to you by the letter C for cow.
I like it. Well, this has been Pod 88 brought to you by Mr. All-In, aka the $1 Trillion Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, or the Person's Champ if he carries on being the way that he is. Myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and Mrs. No Show, aka No Show, ESG Champ. Peace.